Great morning, everybody. Today is Songkran Festival Day. It's also the New Year's of Thai people. Today, I would like to talk about the national identity on educational policy of case studies of Thailand. Identity is an abstract term, and most researchers believe that identity can be explained into three different dimensions: Enlightenment subjects, sociological subjects, and postmodern subjects. On the whole, national identity is the ongoing process in which a person interacts with environments from the different perspectives, and this helps form the multiple identities of each individual. When identity is applied to the integrity of nations or states, it comes to the national identity. Because nationality can be defined the term of political force. The population is politically socialized to form attitudes to support the whole political system at a nation or state. National identity is also closely related to the enactment of constitution of every country. Nevertheless, in this research, national identity was investigated to educational policies of the Kingdom of Thailand. The citizens of the same nation's identity have the shared understandings of the geopolitical concept of their living place. Nationalism, aspiration, emotions, feelings, belief, and common belonging and mutual trust among citizens based on their traditions, customs, rituals, history, and the same imaginations of the nation. The same value, ideas, moral, principle, the use of national languages for communications, and the portrayals of the media for social attachment. The researcher investigated, I am the researcher, two educational policies from 19th century in the reign of King Chulalongkorn, the Great Independent King. At that time, I did my research in the period of the Great King Bhumibol and found with the great pressures of Buddhism have been two fundamental components in directing national identity at the king is the permanently iconic personalization. All the kings in Thailand practice as Buddhist kings. The concept of loyal hegemony on Buddhist philosophy is the great model to follow. Buddhist philosophy also with His Majesty of King Bhumibol has been performed to translated into practice philosophy of self-sufficient economies and to become the distinguished national identities for the Thai people. National identity, to be know already, has been discussion topic in educational context. In this research, there will be a deep discussion about these issues in details. First of all, the term identity and its relations with national identity will be fully discussed. Besides, the meanings of Thainess will be discussed and be used to show how it has complied and also complicated in the meanings of national identity among the people of Thailand. Lastly, I will explain how national identity can be implemented in the educational policy. According to the new educational reform, learning to live together, so promoted by the National Council of Education of Thailand show their love for their nations, but they or some people concerns about national identity has been highly promoted of one of the key source value and attitude. It is that national identity is positive spirit, perseverance, respect for others, and commitment to society and nations identifies values and attitude regarded as paramount to the Thai's personal development, and it is hoped that Thais will have a deeper understanding of the history, culture, natures, and human environment. National identity created by education had the following purposes, and it complies of the following perspectives or features: civic nationalisms, cosmopolitans, cultural nationalisms, and kingship institutions nationalism. In this case, it means the citizens should not only also show their loyalty to the kingship institutions, show their belief in the law of the loyal family and democracy. They also implement any projects for making marriage with the king. This implies that national identity is not confined that one identity only, and it is determined by various perspectives and features. As you know already, in the past decades, the world is under great changes, and globalization has played an important role and in changing the world so rapidly. A lot of scholars have a consensus agreement on its impact as economics and educational development of communities in the world. The challenges cannot be avoided, and all perspectives of the people have to equip themselves to face those challenges. But the problems arise, and some of the scholars are worried that globalization will pose a threat of existence of the national identity. People will ignore that old national identity because they need to learn more about global knowledge. To be more competitive and meet the national standards of the world, scholars like the philosophers in Europe or in Australia or in New Zealand or American philosophers also remark that national identity is used to unite the people together in defined areas, culturally and politically, as a force to defy the competition force of the other nations. When identity is applied to the integrities of the nation, it's come to the discussions about nation or national identity. According to the Fitman, national identity can be defined in terms of political forces. The population is politically socialized to form attitudes to support the whole political system and the nations. The national identity also closely related to enactments of constitutions of every country by referring to the own on the ones of certain thinkers. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who believed that people could group together to have same identity and political view the same community. The constitutive principle played an important role and the formations of the national identity because it can represent the collective self understandings of the community. But the political sense of will may lead to phenomena, and someone can determine who is inclusive and who is exclusive be the national battery as it is critical in conclusion is not entirely. What is more, another components of national identity refer to how to the citizen in a defined area identify themselves to be. Simply speaking, the citizens of the place can have collective belonging by referring to emotional symbols of the singing of the national anthem, the flag, national ceremonies, rituals, monuments to their heroes. Thus, we believe that the national identity can be revised from individual's point of view. Each individual applies his knowledge to constitute of formations of national identity. A person also observes, learns, and acquires different kinds of information for different sources to become part of the background knowledge to critical thinking. And each individual can give reason to make a discussion to show who is in the community. It is in the past, or it is respect to national identity is not fixed itself or items, but a process of identifications, and it is changes all the time. May leading to education in Thailand. In belief, education in Thailand can be said to have begun in the 13th century when Sukhothai periods for Thailand's capital. One of Sukhothai kings, especially in the periods of Ram Khamhaeng, the king, or the great king Christopher's Thai alphabet, using as it basis the Mon and Khmer script which had in turn been derived from the South Indian script. He employed for the first time to new alphabet in his turns in scripts of 12 and 92 at Sukhothai. Throughout the kingdom of Sukhothai, two levels of education existed. Education provided by the royal institutions of instruction is called Raj Bandit. To the prince or king relatives or the sons of nobles. And education is provided by Buddhist monks to the commoners. But for the females, they have scant opportunities to learn because of the Buddhist regulations or the Buddhist lead. After fall of Ayutthaya period, 417 years, the educational institutions also emphasize in house or home or what temples or king institutes. But by the way, the first king of the Chakri dynasty, he made an impact on the development of public education by reforming of the church during the early Bangkok's period. A number of treatises were concluded with foreign power. You can see easily if you seriously study throughout the history. the Western came to Thailand, mostly in the form of the treaties of friendships and commerce. Since English became the rigorous functions of Far East King Brahma V, right, that the kinds of education provided to monastics and the case was not elected for the future government officials. For this reason, he commanded that the measure to be taken to modernize the education in the country and good knowledge of English were formed part, and also the new education requirement, as it had become a necessary key to versatilize as well as mediums of communities with the foreigners. The policy of educational modernization was further pursued by the King Rama V and also King Rama VI, recognized by the needs of special trained personnel in the royal and governmental services. He opened a school in the palace and in station education, and also be educated young princes and sons of nobles. This was the first Thai school in the modern sense, as has all school building, lab teachers and timetable. Go back to the BEE, the century, and at that time, 1831, immediately after setting up the first school in Command's Declaration of Schools was issued from this purpose. Although it is interesting to note that the Command Declaration of Schooling signifies the advent of formal school and in the reign of Rama V, the fact remained the educational system at the first time is established for the elite. But for the general perspective of Thai education, Department of Education oversees the kingdom education and religious affairs. At the time of its inception, the department had under its jurisdiction. For this, Thailand was on its way to being a plan it supplies more systematic and even force, and that education also has its own spokesman to speak for its worldly causes. In 1898, the first educational plan was launched. It was divided into two parts. The first concerned with education in Bangkok area, while the second with education in the provinces. The most significant phases of the education plans for the educational organizations has covered all levels, namely pre-primary, primary, secondary, and technical education up to higher education. In 1902, the national systems of education in science retained all the education levels of the 1998 plan to reshape them into categories, namely general education and professional or technical education. Another feature of the plans for that varieties of the first method for admissions was supposed to motivate the graduations within the scheduled duration. go back to Thai history of education system. In 1921, the Compulsory Primary Education Act was proclaimed, and in the year 1932, recorded a period of historical change in Thailand, as also institutional monarchy system replaced the traditional system of absolute monarchy. The first national education was scheme that devised whereby individual education stability regardless of sex, social background, or physical conditions would be formal recognized. But in 1960, compulsory education was extended to 7 years. In addition, especially separation was for the first time made for disabled children who were originally exempted from compulsory education so that they might be given some of the basics of education, because it can be said that compulsory education is also the law for the people who have to get education by law. Anyway, from 1960s, compulsory education extended to 7 years, and in Thailand, we have several changes to rebuild, to create a new of education system for the children to regard their handicapped, also marginalized people. Problems for my research, qualitative research is used in my studies. Obviously, the Thai national state has used various two standards, also consolidates and vitalize its rulings by using education to transmit to importance of good civics responsibility and also personalities of the citizen. The concept of good civics personality is regarded by me as I am researchers as a national identity, and researchers would like to answer to what the Thai nation state important or implanted to spirit national identity to the education policy from the first policy to the present one. Civic education on the whole can help facilitate and also to understanding of citizens in Thai nation. What is knowledge? Its contents includes knowledge, values, attitudes, group identifications necessary for the political community as well as its member, and also the knowledge of history, especially education's history. The structure of political institutions, as both the national and local level, the loyal institutions as the highest power to create or to present the education to the all of the people. And anyway, education in the worldwide have to persuade the positive attitudes, political authorities, and fundamental social political beliefs and values to these people. But different school authorities interpret the meanings of civic education in different ways. Some only forgot a lot of substantial knowledge for myself, such as history and geography. and cognitive domains such as critical thinking and the concepts of thinking actions and affective domain such as value and attributes and also attitudes are neglected in curriculum. Added to this, the researchers' questions for feasibilities of the national identity education by forcing the question and educations on the cultural identity. According to the Learning to Live Together consultations paper, two citizens are required to have deeper understanding to history, culture, natural and human development. For the Thailand to be or in order to strengthen their national identity and cultivate a sense of national identity through understanding elements of Thai history and culture. Come from this problem solutions for my research. National identity is broadly defined as a composition of understanding features and characteristics of Thai society and people that differentiate talents from other countries. And it has helped the Thai people to move forward while maintaining of Thailand despite external influences and threats throughout history. In the early days of Thai history, education was primarily entries throughout history by religions, domestics, and lawyers instead. Especially Buddhism gave basic education to the boys in classes set up within compounds or monasteries. With students of the royal household and from family nobilities were educated in order to serve the courts and governments in the province. So, I would like to talk about periods in the greatest Rama Chulalongkorn the fifth and King Wachiravut or King Rama VI of Thailand described Thai societies as far upon hand together by fundamental institutions or the pillars, namely the nation, religion, and monarchy. These three institutions, particularly with their positive understanding traits as well as their mutually supportive role and responsibility, have significantly to test Thailand's unity, securities, and development to the ages. The concepts of good civic personalities was invented to the Thailanders. So, the proclamations of the new constitutions in 1997 has made dramatic change of education. The main objectives in education plan is to produce Thai citizens who are of high qualities, both academics and professionals, equipped with the knowledge and skill needed for the national development. Moreover, Thai higher education had to contribute to economic, social, and environmental stability, be able to solve critical problems of the countries as become centers of education for the neighboring countries to institutions that are autonomous, efficiencies, and adjustable to the world changes. The discourse of goodness, virtue, and happiness is the foremost Thai identity. Nonetheless, kingship institution is the immense model with the Thai people on their head with great respect. It is that's what I use the term loyal hegemonies to explain phenomenon. Thailand is now constitutional monarchy and the country aspiring to become newly to develop the country. But traditional principles of rightness, Buddhist kingship, and also kingly virtues remain to paramount important. To the present monarchy, His Majesty, his display continue to display perfect understanding of constitutional kingship, as well as the traditional sources and symbols of Thai monarchical tradition, the significant history related to his men themselves, and also well-being of the subjects, the securities and stabilities of his nations and national unities. These three main themes are constructed by themselves, also related to self-sufficiency philosophy, which underlies by Buddhist philosophy. I would like to give you a conclusion. Development of Thai national identity has been transforming to the passing time. Nevertheless, Buddhist philosophy is a central inspiration to the form Thainess deep inside their spirit. Buddhism gained wide acceptance because its emphasis on tolerance and individual initiatives complemented anti-cherish sense of inner freedom. Fundamentals Buddhism is an empirical way of life. The discourse of national heroes or heroines have been versions of kingship institutions considering the kings are iconic persons of the Thai citizens. As the Buddhist king, His Majesty, especially the King Bhumibol embarks early the ranks and the journeys to know his subject and his process allow them to get close to know him at the same time. At the same time, he uses Thai's values to accommodate institutional experiences and has to accuse grasp institutional rule, but remain detached from politics, playing non-partisan's role in the country's political process and development. In fact, that the king has provide the meaning of education, especially how to gain national identity by education. But sometimes we confront the serious problems of contextualizations of the nation, like politics, economics, socio-cultural. So, in this case, I would like to give the whole conclusion. If we want to have Thainess or national identities for sustainability, we have to teach them by heart, and also the reflections of your reaction in each period of teaching. You have to concern about what you do, not what you say. Thank you very much for today. ขอบคุณครับ